Hello and welcome back to the Do The Work podcast. We are here again at Do The Work HQ for another episode. And again, I have some questions for you. Today, they're going to be themed around exercise and training. Last time we covered sort of weight loss and nutrition. So without further ado, let's get stuck into it. All right, so technically question 6, but question 1 of what we're looking at today for exercise and training. How many workouts per week do I need to do to see results? So this is kind of dependent on the goal, but as a rule of thumb in terms of clients, typically my clients train between 3 and 5 times per week. Now, the number is dependent usually on what someone is able to do with regards to their lifestyle, how much time have they got, are they really busy working 12-hour days, 5 days a week, have they got kids, have they got access to the gym, all of that stuff. But I think the best way to answer this is to give a bit of a parameter. So between 3 and 5, I find is the most effective. Any more than that, you're probably going to be under recovering. And any less than that, it's just not enough in terms of frequency to get any level of results. You'll make some progress, but it'll take you a very long time to do so. Now, what I would say also on this is that as we get older, frequency becomes more and more important. So one way to look at this is if, say, we're in our 20s and we want to train our legs and we want to maintain our muscle mass in our legs, training our legs once per week or training once per week will probably enough to maintain the levels that we have got. Whereas when we get deeper into our 40s, 50s and then 60s, it becomes more important to have a higher frequency of training. Therefore, if we're in our 60s, normally around 3 times per week is what we need to do in terms of maintaining that muscle mass, which is why things like full body workouts are quite effective for someone who's a little bit older. And also it allows us that time to recover between sessions as well, because ultimately we are going to recover a little bit slower as we get a little bit older. So it is a little bit age dependent, but generally speaking, the rule of thumb, I would say aim between 3 and 5. If you're someone who's a little bit time poor, but you still want to achieve a good frequency, you can look at things like, okay, I can get to the gym twice per week, but can I do something at home twice per week? And then the other thing to look at is, okay, I don't necessarily need to go to the gym for an hour or an hour and a half. Could I just go for 40 minutes or 45 minutes and get that done on a more frequent basis than just going for an hour or an hour and a half? And you would get more out of that. So I would say frequency is probably more important than duration, as long as you're not going to the gym for like 5 or 10 minutes. But if you're someone who's struggling for time, then doing multiple workouts of half hour or 40 minutes is better than doing one workout or 2 workouts of like an hour and a half. So that's what I'd recommend there. And as I say, also consider that you could do stuff at home if you're really tired for time as well. And even if it means doing some bodyweight stuff, just doing something is better than doing nothing. Okay, let's have a look at the second question. Should I focus more on cardio or weights for fat loss? To be honest with you, most people focus too much time and energy on exercise for weight loss. So in terms of a list of priorities, what I look at when I'm working with clients, priority 1 is always going to be nutrition, or more specifically to weight loss, number of calories that person is eating and drinking. Then the next thing from that is going to be how much do they move overall, so what's their step count, and set a target based on that. Typically speaking, we'll set a weekly target so that they can be successful over the week, because busy days happen, chain to the desk type days, or something comes up with the kids or whatever, which makes it then difficult if you've almost feel like you've failed. So you don't then have to write the week off. You've got the whole week to essentially be able to hit that target. And then in exercise, we use that as a tool. Most people overestimate how many calories they're actually going to burn through exercise, especially when it comes to weight training, which is something I promote and push and get my clients to do. But if we were to say do cardio for an hour, we would burn more calories. However, the net benefit is probably better to focus more on the weight training, manage our nutrition and move enough so that we're doing enough steps to expend a good amount of energy and still be able to do our weight training rather than only having the time to do cardio in the gym. So in terms of the overall benefit, I would say that in a training sense, it's more important to focus on your weight training and that you can get the overall calorie expenditure from managing the rest of your time and also managing your nutrition. And that's where you're going to have the biggest impact. If you go to the gym, you might burn 200-300 calories, maybe a little bit more. It really depends on what you're doing. But that might be around 10% of the calories that you eat that day. Let's say you burn 200 calories and your daily intake is 2,000. That's not a lot. However, controlling what happens in those 2,000 calories and that not then being 2,500 or 3,000 calories will have a much bigger effect than expending 200 calories in the gym. So try and encourage people to focus on exercise to get better, get stronger, feel healthier, happier, have more energy, and then the rest of the time we manage that in terms of controlling calories. Okay, question number 3. What's the best type of exercise for someone who's peri or post-menopause? So again, it's really important here that we consider weight training. So what accelerates during and after menopause is a reduction in bone density and muscle mass as a result of the hormonal changes that happen. And the one thing that we want to look after the most as we get older is our bone density and muscle mass, because if we lose that, we then increase the risk of falling, hurting and damaging bones and joints and all the rest of it from falling, and ultimately we're at risk. And also, it's just going to make life generally harder. Getting out of a chair, moving around is just going to be harder if we have essentially weak bones and weak muscles and joints that don't move very well. So it's really important that we maintain our weight training that we had before, or if we didn't do weight training before, I suppose we can only start now, but it's important to have that in there as part of your training. And as I talked about earlier, the frequency as we get older really matters. Obviously, part of the menopause is that things feel harder, you're more tired, you're more lethargic, and sometimes you don't necessarily want to do that. So the tip around considering shorter workouts is a really good one to think about when you're going through this or have gone through this, because at least you can maybe find the energy to do 30 or 40-minute workouts rather than an hour or an hour and a half workouts. So we're ticking both boxes there by getting the frequency, and then also we're not overstressing ourselves by doing workouts that are too long as well. All right, we've got 2 left to go. Let's have a look. So we've got, how do I stay consistent with my workouts when life gets busy? So this is quite topical right now because it's December right now as we're recording this, and a lot of people are telling me how busy they are of their lives and they're struggling to commit to it now. And I'll get inquiries and people will say, I'll do it in January because I'm so busy right now. I can't get my head around it right now is exactly what a few people have said. Now, I believe that we should start, if we've got the desire, motivation, or whatever to start, just start. Start when you're busy. Because if you only do it when life is quieter, which it never is, then when it does get busier, you'll not know what to do. So that's one factor to consider in. But what I'd also make sure that you do with your workouts is that you try and be consistent in terms of when you do them. Treat them like whatever else goes in your calendar, whether that be your working day, your doctor's appointments, so that they are fixed in and they happen at the same day and the same time every single week. And almost nothing will be allowed to interrupt with that. Make sure the family know when that is and that they support with that. Because if you don't book it in your calendar, it just isn't going to happen. And for me, if it's not in your calendar, that tells me that you're not fully committed to doing it and it's not enough as a priority to you. So saying that you might go to the gym on Tuesday this week, or you might go to the gym on Friday this week, when it comes to it, the day, is a bit of a stressful day and things come up and whatever, it's the first thing that's going to go because it's only in your mind, so it's easy to just jib it off. Whereas if it's in your diary, you've committed to it, you've told people about it, be that people at work or your partner or kids or whatever it is, they might even remind you that you're going to the gym that day. But certainly if it's in your calendar, you're much more likely to do it than if you're just hoping that you're going to go to the gym. And then when you get busy, what tends to happen is that your life just gets built around the stuff that you always do. And eventually it'll just be that you go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and other things need to fit in around that. Sometimes, obviously, there's going to be situations where there's something on a Wednesday night and you know what, you just can't go to the gym that night. But you're that committed to that point so that then you just change things around a little bit. You attend the social event on the Wednesday. You either go to the gym a little bit earlier or maybe you move it to Tuesday or Thursday and still get it done. So there's loads of ways around it, but what I would say is just make sure you're as consistent as possible with when you go and make sure it's in your diary so that when it does get busy, it's not something that just gets moved. If it's something that gets thrown around and moved, then it's not going to happen. It's going to be the first thing to go. Okay, last one. Let's have a look. Why don't I see results even though I'm working out regularly? So this links back to the previous episode that I talked about in terms of it being really important that we are managing our calories by how much we are eating and drinking, and then how much we're moving overall. Because we could be training and exercising every day and working really hard. We might be doing an hour's cardio every day, but if we're eating whatever we want, whenever we want, then that is definitely going to outweigh the work that we're doing in the gym. Because I can tell you now, I can eat calories a lot faster than I can burn calories. And so it's much easier to mess it up, so to speak, to erode our deficit by simply having a night where we just binge and eat whatever we want, or that run into 2, 3 or 4 nights, or doing whatever we want at weekend and still training every day really hard. And it'll almost feel like, what's the point in doing it? But that's because we're focusing on the wrong things with our training. So we don't want to focus on burning calories with our training. We want to focus on the benefits we get from that aren't just burning calories, getting stronger, happier, healthier. Making progress is a big one that I do with clients, and then managing the rest of the stuff, because unfortunately we can't out-train a diet that is full of calories that are essentially taking us into a calorie surplus. It just comes back to that age-old thing that the calorie deficit, if we're working to weight loss, is the one thing we need to do. And it's very difficult to achieve that just by training. And again, to sort of relay my sort of order of focus for this, priority 1 is nutrition. So what are we eating and drinking and managing calories? How much are we moving overall? And then the final piece is we can use exercise as a tool and maybe consider adding some cardio in to expend some energy. But whilst we do that, we can still remember all the other benefits that we get from cardio as well that aren't just burning calories. Okay, so that's the 5 questions for exercise and training. Hopefully that's useful for you, and we'll be back some more content soon. Thanks for tuning in for today's episode. I hope you found that useful and valuable. If you'd like to hear more from us, all you need to do is hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next episode.